To me, I think we have to remind people over and over again of exactly what the consequences are if you fail to vote. I've been telling people that all elections are important, so I don't call one more important than the other. But I will say that some elections are more consequential than others. And I believe that this is the most consequential election of my lifetime. And I've been here for a while. I even think it's more consequential than anything we've had since maybe 1860, because I think we all know what grew from Abraham Lincoln's election in 1860, and we know what has happened since then. And so I'm saying to people today that the consequences of this year's election are probably as dire, if not more so, than the consequences of 1860. It's just that simple.
The biggest election, if not of all time, since the election of 1860, Congressman Clyburn says here. So, Abraham Lincoln and Hannibal Hamlin coming out on top of that one. I gotta say, Hannibal Hamlin's a pretty cool, just a pretty interesting name, isn't it? Name somebody Hannibal. One of the great generals of all time. Somebody that I think we'll have to do a Shields High episode on, so producer Mark can note that one down. I think that would probably, once I get out of, and yes, we have Malta already in the books, for those who don't know, which is why you should subscribe to the Buck Sexton podcast if you don't already, because these will only be out on podcasts, not on radio stations. Although if any stations over the holidays want to play them, we wouldn't be opposed to that either. But they're very specific history battle lessons that are, I don't know, just comes from a play. I'm fascinated by it. So we've done in the past this Mediterranean Christian Muslim warfare podcasts, and then the Dracula podcast, which I'm hoping to pull together before Halloween this year. But I also want to do Hannibal crossing the Alps and that period of the Punic Wars between Carthage and ancient Rome. That would be a really fun one to do as well. Amazing battles. I have a whole book on the Battle of, there's people say it several different ways, Cannae. Some people even say Canna, but one of the most horrific one-day losses of life pre-gunpowder in all of battle history. Amazing that so many people would be killed at a time when it was all spears and swords. Anyway, but so yes, the most consequential election since 18. That was just my pitch for you all to subscribe to the Buck Sexton Show on the iHeart app or Spotify or wherever. So that when those Shields High episodes come out, you'll already be good to go and you'll be able to listen to them. I had my sister listen to one she's about to have a baby. And when I say about to, I mean, it could happen by the time this show is over. She's already due. Could happen any minute. I am going to be Uncle Buck. That's a real thing. I'm going to be Uncle Buck soon. And I single-handedly plan to change the feeling around the name Uncle Buck. Producer Mark, you've seen that movie, right?
Of course, it's a classic. Why would you want to change anything?
I'm not sure that I aspire to be like the John Candy character in that movie, though he is lovable in his own way.
I mean, that's fair, but it's still a great movie.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not saying it's not a good movie. I'm just saying, I don't think I want to be compared to that guy. So, the most consequential election, they're saying, since 1860. I think that there's some truth to that. And I think it's because the Democrat, and this is the problem, right? I'll walk you through my analysis on this, and then I'll tell you that I don't have great answers as to some of the questions that it raises, because I do believe the Democrat Party is now emotionally and psychologically a socialist party. They don't like that label, and they're still incremental. The same way that the lockdowns have been incremental, the socialism that we see in America now is incremental. It's piece by piece, right? It was Obamacare. Now it's Medicare for all. Next, it's just socialized medicine full on, right? And that separation between Medicare for all is single payer, so the government pays for everyone's health care. Socialized medicine. Now that is a socialist system in that you have to move a lot of money around through redistribution to fund that. But straight up socialized medicine, from just a definitional standpoint, would be the government paying the doctors, owning the hospitals, and determining who gets what care, where, how, when. So the National Health Service of the UK, that is socialized medicine. You are a state employee as a doctor in the NHS. And that's where that's been an enormous drag on the British economy. And it's a hugely expensive system. It's not a particularly good system for complicated issues if one comes up. And the problem is that the demagoguery becomes so easy around this. It's like we talk about Obamacare now. They say, oh my gosh, people without Obamacare, it's like they won't have health care anymore. We didn't have people just dying in the streets all over the place in America because of preventable disease or treatable medical issues that they were just denied care for everywhere. I'm not saying that never happens. Of course, there are going to be shortcomings in the system, and that's tragic whenever it happens. But that wasn't our reality. That wasn't what was going on. And that still happens sometimes in this country, despite Obamacare, as we know, which is why they've wanted to expand beyond Obamacare into this Medicare for All plan, although Biden doesn't want to. He wants to do Obamacare Plus. You see, all he's doing is looking at the leap the left and the socialists wanted to make, and Biden saying, let me put a plank in between. We'll hop on that one on our way to what the socialists want. And that's really what the Biden presidency is. I think Biden is a bridge to the next administration of a Democrat that is a full-on socialist, like a Bernie Sanders, an Elizabeth Warren, perhaps even a Kamala Harris, which means that it might not even be after 4 or 8 years that we face this, but just a matter of a couple of years before that comes next. So is this the most consequential election since 1860? Now, which is almost like saying the most consequential election of all time. I guess saying the second most of all time. To this, I'd say I think the Democrats not only have gone socialist, but also have a plan to permanently transform the country. They first removed the filibuster. And I do believe, I am very worried they're going to have control of the Senate. So let's just talk about this for a moment. If they get control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, okay, they get all three. What would be the first thing that they do? They'll eliminate the filibuster in the Senate entirely. I do believe that will happen. They will pack the court. I do believe that will happen. And they will move the biggest thing they can go for right away is a full-on amnesty. And the Biden presidency can do that knowing that Joe Biden, if it becomes a big liability for him in the short term, which I think it would, the American people are not in favor of amnesty. And when they find out, and they will, what the real number of people in the country illegally is, it is not 11 million. And I'm not just surmising that. I'm not just coming up with that. I've spoken extensively to members of Border Patrol and Customs and Immigration Enforcement, and they will tell you there's just no way, based on their monthly numbers and this whole, there's net zero immigration. Right now, it doesn't count because of COVID, but in general, net zero immigration to the U.S. from Mexico and the rest of Latin America, south of Mexico, is a fantasy that we've all been told to make people not think that there is a massive, a seismic shift in the U.S. population that comes not just from immigrants in general, but really from Mexico and Central America. It's been an enormous change, unlike anything we've ever experienced in our history when you just look at the aggregate number of people from one place or one culture and region. And if they found out that it was 20 or 30 million Americans who were about to be made permanent residents, and then eventually the Democrats would want to give them voting rights too, right? So first comes the permanent residency, and then citizenship is just a step beyond that. That's just a legislative fix at that point. We're going to see an election here where I think it's pretty easy to say that less than 500,000 votes will determine, spread out over a number of states, will determine the outcome. What do you think happens to the future of elections in this country if you add, let's call it 20 million new citizens? They would say first just permanent residents or green card or something like, but they'd be made citizens within short order. So they make 20 million new citizens with an average Democrat voting advantage of 60 or 70% of them, right? So let's say 2 to 3 to 1 would be what you're looking at. 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. I'm sorry, 3 to 1 or 4 to 1 would be the advantage you're looking at, especially after a Democrat amnesty among that population. Do you think we're going to win any elections after that? You think that that's really going to happen? You have much larger illegal populations in a lot of states you don't even think of, in the Carolinas, for example. Think about what that would do to flipping Texas blue. So this is a very consequential election because if Democrats just get that, it would strike me that they can get the Supreme Court doing their bidding with court packing, and they can get amnesty across the, they could just get a universal amnesty passed. That's what remember Reagan signed an amnesty bill for millions of people back in '86, and he said he was swindled and it was a bad move. If they get that, what really becomes our opposition? What are we able to do then to try to win national elections? I don't have a good answer for you other than I think America becomes, for at least a few generations, a one-party state, and our debt and the size of government and the intrusiveness of government becomes more and more unbearable. And then eventually maybe there's either a collapse or there's some recognition that the government, that our system has worked so well because it allows people to make choices, to live in freedom, and to pursue their destiny as is best for them as individuals, and that when you eliminate that, you have something else. Right? When you eliminate that and you give people just the soma of government largesse, we're gonna take care of you, we're gonna give you your health care, we're gonna give you this and that and everything else. There's a reason why other countries that take that approach, that really, first of all, if they really take that approach, people always point to Sweden and the Scandinavian countries, Denmark, and they don't understand that those are very free market friendly countries for business to operate in. They have low corporate tax rates. They have high individual taxes and a large welfare state and a tremendous amount of social buy-in and social responsibility, right? Everybody works. Everybody gets the perks. That's their approach. But they're not socialist countries. They don't have the government in control of all industries. And if anything, they've moved away from socialism and become much more free market over the last 20 or 30 years. Norway is a bit of an outlier as well, but Norway is also a country that is very small, politically and ideologically homogenous, and has enormous fossil fuel reserves that can fund things that you wouldn't be able to have otherwise for the country. But obviously you look at Venezuela, which is a country that was promised, that has also enormous oil reserves and largest oil reserves in the world for what it is. And it's a country that's falling apart, where there are bread lines, where they don't have medicine. And it's because they put in charge a government that thought it could solve all the problems for the people, that would set price controls, that use social justice as a means of determining how to run the economy. This results in very bad outcomes. So, this is just my way of working through with you. How consequential is this election? If Trump loses, we may not have another opportunity to elect a Republican for a generation or two. I think that's real. I think that's true. And what would the country be like if it took 10 or 20 years for a Republican to be able to win office again? What would the Republican Party even be like at that point? So I don't think it's an overstatement to say that this is the most consequential election, not just of my lifetime, but perhaps of the last 150 years, because it'll be a very different country if we lose this. And I'm right about what the Democrats try to do. And unfortunately, when it comes to Democrats being a bunch of scheming, maneuvering, absolutely ruthless political hatchet men, I tend to be right. So that's what I see happening here. As I've told you all, I have not watched any of the NFL or NBA games this year. Not one, which is not that far off of an usual year for me. But I do watch the NFL because my two brothers, who are great Americans, great patriots, and my dad, another great American and great patriot, they're like real Americans who like football and can eat gluten, and they're like normal people that all of you would like to hang out with. They don't have the weird I like tennis and soccer thing that I do, but they so I watch with them because it's fun bro and dad hang time. But I haven't watched any this year, and the most interesting thing that's happened so far since I haven't been watching, at least in the last few days, was this hot mic moment. And look, this is not a big thing, it's not a big story, but I think this is interesting because for me it's a little bit of a Rorschach test. Because you can't, everyone was assuming that I read one thing, and I'm not sure that I agreed with how they were saying it, but they were on an open mic, and NFL announcers Joe Buck, which is a cool name. He's got Buck in his name. And Troy Aikman, they say something about military flyovers. Here's what they said. Play one.
It's a lot of jet fuel just to do a little flyover. That's your hard-earned money and your tax dollars at work. That stuff ain't happening with Kamala Biden ticket. I'll tell you that right now, partner.
You kind of heard them saying, oh, all the jet fuel that they're spending. First of all, neither of these guys know squat about the military training schedules. They have to fly planes. The pilots need flight hours. It's part of training. So they can either fly these planes that, as we know, go very fast and can go quite far. They either fly these planes over nothing, or they can fly them over the stadium. It's training nonetheless. Guess what? Logged as training hours, flight hours. So they don't know what they're talking. But it's not surprising. These guys are sports announcers. They know sports. They should stick to what they know. But what I thought was interesting is that stuff's not going to happen under a Biden-Harris administration. People seem to say that was, it wasn't clear to me. The inclination, I think, was for most to believe that it was Biden and Harris won't do that kind of wasteful stuff with taxpayer dollars. But I was also thinking, or are they saying that Biden and Harris wouldn't have the military do NFL stuff because, they don't like the military as much or don't want that to be. I couldn't really tell. I think it was producer Mark. You saw this, and I know you actually just want to watch the football game and don't really care about this open mic moment. But was it? What did you think? Which one of those, or maybe they were saying something else that I was missing? What was the point?
I mean, I've listened to these two guys call a lot of games, and first of all, I think they're one of the worst announcing teams in football, but some people love Joe Buck, some people hate him. And I'm a Giants fan, so I don't like Troy Aikman, the former Cowboys quarterback. But besides the fact, I think they were both being sarcastic. I think it was one of those, like me and you having a conversation off the air that you wouldn't want anybody else to hear, and it's just sarcasm, kind of like that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. Yeah. Oh no, producer Mark and I have hilarious conversations off the air, but would not be acceptable for the 10-year-olds listening on Team Buck. So that's why we keep it clean here. But we say some pretty funny, salty stuff off air. Okay, so that I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean they were clearly, but so they're being sarcastic though because Biden and Harris wouldn't. Why wouldn't Biden and Harris do that though? They don't want to waste the money, or they don't care about this nonsense. That's what I didn't really get.
I think Troy Aikman is probably a Republican, so I think he was saying, I think they were mocking political commentators, is the way I took it.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Anyway, it got some attention. It wasn't like a big. People have said way worse stuff. Hey, let's be honest. Troy and Joe Buck here. At least they didn't leave the Zoom on for happy fun time. You know what I mean? I got a crash course in home title theft recently. You better pray this crime never happens to you because it can ruin you financially. Here's what happens. The legal title to your home, guess what? It's online. It's in the cloud, stored on servers. The cyber thieves find your home's title, then forge your signature on it using a quitclaim deed, and then they take out loans against the equity for your home. You often don't find out about this until you're left in debt, start receiving payment notices, or maybe even a foreclosure notice. You're not going to know about it until those collection calls start. Insurance and common identity theft programs do not protect you. You need the experts with Home Title Lock. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. Use the promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. That's HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. You can also check online at that site to see if you're a victim of this crime and don't even know it. HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. Now they're finally saying it. I've been preparing you for this for a while. I've known we're heading for it. But now it's coming out just as people are getting ready, or I know tens of millions have already voted, but we're getting ready to see the results on Election Day. You're having experts, public policy folks, you're having them say out loud that we should just get used to this new normal of lockdowns and social distancing and masks. that this is basically going to be life for the foreseeable future. Let me just say that to that, I say no. I refuse. And increasingly, we're going to have to get to a place where the refusal is not just verbal, it's not just part of a debate, it's going to have to turn into action. And I mean, I've told my family, if New York goes and says they're going to start outdoor masking on pain of a summons or arrest, I'm going to get arrested. I'm not wearing a mask outside. And that's fine. I'll go quietly. The officers will know. They can process me. There won't be any, I'm not going to make any noise about it, but they're going to have to arrest me because this is just crazy. These people are lunatics now that think that we're going to stop this by just, wear a mask, put the mask on, outside, inside, in the shower, in the bed, put a mask on. No. Not doing it. Not doing it. They still won't even answer the question why we haven't done this. I mean, I've been alive for 38 years, and never in my lifetime has it been suggested that we all need to wear masks to save 40, 50, 60,000 people every year from the flu. I mean, if it was so easy and such a minimal imposition, why didn't any of our brilliant public health professionals say this? Look, they don't have any answers, friends. They can't protect us. So now this just becomes the go-to, right? And it's a little bit like what you hear. This is a similar mentality. Why are the schools, public schools, not better? Why can't we close achievement gaps between different groups, richer and poorer students? And why? Oh, it needs more money. Well, but there might be other problems. Or maybe we're not doing some things the right. Nope, just needs more money. That's the way that they really view masking now. I just need more masks. We wear more masks, everything gets better. Oh, it's not going well, you're not wearing enough masks. They are monomaniacal about masking. That's what's happening here. You have MSNBC's medical guest, Dr. William Schaffner. Not like Shatner is the Priceline guy, right? That's a different guy. William Schaffner, who's telling you all this is the way it's going to be. Get used to it. Play 5.
Yeah, well, I think Tony is washing his hands literally and figuratively of all the nonsense and focusing on the basic issue. If we could control the virus, if we could reduce its spread, then we can open up more comfortably, carefully, but we must do it carefully. There's no sense that we can just do it in a carefree fashion. But if we could control the virus's spread in the community, then indeed we could all enjoy each other's company at some distance in this new normal.
The new normal, folks. Enjoy each other at a distance. No more parties, no more weddings, no more graduations, no more, live concerts, just give it all up. Let the Faucis of the world tell you what you can do, what your life gets to be like now. If you don't, you object to science, and you're literally killing people. This is the country we live in now. This is America we're talking about here, where this has become mainstream. This has become what the experts are telling us. We have vaccines that are a month or two from approval and perhaps even 2 to 3 months from the early stages of distribution. And we're still talking about how we got to have masking and social distancing now as the new normal. Oh. So now what they say is different from what they were telling us at the beginning when we knew far less, when the virus was believed to be much more dangerous than we now know it is. And they want to maintain all these levers of control. Here's the problem. They can't control the virus. They can only control us. They cannot control this virus. They cannot stop this virus. And so what do? They go with this moral blackmail of you better listen to us or else you're responsible for killing grandma. And this has been an argument that they've been making all along. This has been a thing that they've been saying from the very beginning. And it's madness. And you can see how crazy it is by the lunatics who really love this kind of thinking and have really adopted it as part of what they say about everything. You have, are we gonna hear from Keith again? Are we gonna hear from Crazy Keith? Here I am, sounding like I'm reading the text of a Shakespearean play, but really I'm just doing left-wing talking points. Miss Precious Perfect. The co-op board would not allow me to continue to live with my beloved feline. Keith Olbermann. Keith Olbermann, what a stupid person thinks a smart person sounds like. He built quite a career off of that. But here he is. I will say, he has found a way, and what did he call me recently? Tex sex bump or buck sex or something, or he had some name for me on Twitter, which I have to say I thought it was pretty funny. I think it was Tex sex bump, which I like. Reminds me of years ago, there was a Team Buck member who wrote in and said his wife, who was an immigrant, called me bub sexual. So yeah, that was a thing that happened. So, sexual with a T. Here is Crazy Keith making sure that we all, not only do we have the public health experts now telling us that we can't have our normal lives back, probably ever, but Crazy Keith wants you to know that Trump is it's not that he hasn't been perfect in his COVID response. He literally should be prosecuted for the murder of every single person in this country who has died of COVID. Play 10.
We are all tired, but mostly I'm tired of the needless sickness and the needless death and the needless terror because this mentally incompetent, inhuman, dumb bastard has lied about this disease in 1,000 different ways, a different way for each different political need he has sensed. And I'm tired of the thought that we're now going to repeat the months of March and April in this country, a country that should have learned something, but which in large part has been authorized to wallow and die in its own stupidity because of one man, one dumb bastard, one selfish son of a bitch, one real-life Major French attacking the only hope we have, the science, and insisting science is wrong and Fauci is an idiot and only I can save you, and insisting you can do whatever you want and the disease affects almost nobody. Donald Trump should be on trial for 220,000 murders, death penalty for each count.
Oh man, he really is in the midst of some kind of a cry for help or a public breakdown or something. I don't know. One of the most despised people, including by former members of his own staff who have ever worked in media. They were going to bring him back to MSNBC at one point, but from what I heard, people were revolting at the notion and said that he couldn't be in the building if they were going to bring him back to MSNBC. They would have to find an alternate studio for him because nobody wanted to be around him or work near him. So he was the biggest draw at MSNBC for years during the Bush administration. People actually thought he was smart and worth listening to. He says the president should be on trial, a death penalty count for a virus that spreads freely in the air that came from China. Wow. Also, 200,000 death penalty counts would be a lot, that's for sure. I just want to know, does he feel the same way about all the European leaders who now have if you look at the EU, they have roughly 400 million people and about the same number of deaths that we have with 330 million people. So we're right in line with the EU, maybe a few more deaths per capita. And that's compared to the EU. There are European countries. Right? Remember, the EU doesn't have one policy for COVID, so that's just a landmass or really a political union of sorts. But it doesn't look at the way different governments have responded to this. If you look on a nation-state basis, Italy worse than us, Spain worse than us, UK worse than us. This is just per capita death rates. Belgium worse than us. France, I think, very close. Germany, I think, a little better. But I'd have to ask. I mean, if we had people that even cared what Keith Olbermann thinks. I mean, now it's really just, it's like outrage performance theater. I mean, the guy's an idiot. But he became rich by telling stupid libs what they want to hear. So you got to give credit to the hustle. I mean, the game worked well for this guy for years. And now he's just kind of sad and past his prime and nobody cares. But I got to tell you this. He says that the president should be on trial for all this. I need to know why the prime minister in the UK and why the president of France and why, go through all of your European heads of state. Why shouldn't they be on trial too? Because they've had lots of people that have died from this. Maybe it's just a virus that hit humanity that was going to kill people no matter what we did. And now we should just understand that we should get back to life as quickly as possible because they're just starting to tabulate It's just starting to calculate how many people have died from drug overdoses, from missed cancer screenings that have turned into now inoperable cancers or lethal terminal cancers, and a lot of people are being ruined and being killed by all that too, because of these lockdowns. And you read these stories, these absolutely heartbreaking stories about senior citizens who are saying, "I'm 80, I'm 85, Yeah, I don't want to be around people who are sick, but I also want to be around my family. I want to be around my loved ones. I don't have that many years. When you're 85, no matter who you are, and everyone who's 85 listening to this knows, you might have 5, 10, maybe 15 years left, maybe, right? This is just human truth, human reality. And a lot of people who are 80, pushing 85, 90 years old want to be around their loved ones. They want to live their best life. They don't want to be alone. They don't want to stay separated from those who matter most to them. When they could get COVID and die. They also could have a stroke. They also could suffer a heart attack, any number of other maladies that still kill far more people in this country every day than COVID-19. Shouldn't they be allowed to make choices? Shouldn't we all be allowed to make choices about our own health? And by the way, if there's an 85-year-old listening to this who wants to be on total lockdown, stay in their home, no judgment. God bless, and let's make sure that there are people in the community to get them food and to lift their spirits and to make sure they have access to FaceTime and enough good books and entertainment while they ride out this pandemic. That's all fine. What we have, though, is a government that wants to force us to do all of these things, and it's training us. And this is what troubles me so much. It's training us to obey or else. And I'm sorry, but I thought this was America, and we weren't supposed to just obey the whims of government, the whims of governors taking emergency powers. I mean, how different is this really from martial law in a sense? They're telling you stay in your home, can't open your business, can't see other people, and if you try, we'll send the cops after you. There should be far more pushback on this, and I think that one of the reasons that Trump and Trump supporters don't make a bigger scene about this is because, unfortunately, the Democrats have scared, and the media have scared people so much over this, that telling people the truth about what we should do now with regard to COVID might be a political liability in the general election. Telling people that we don't have a silver bullet for this, and it's still going to be around, and we're going to have to live with this. That's one of those truths. I'm not sure a majority. A lot of people want to hear it. I think a lot of you know it and want to hear it. But I'm not sure a majority of the American people are ready for that yet. They've been told, hide, listen to Fauci, whatever he says. And we're suffering, and the country's going through disaster after disaster because of it.
I hold Donald Trump responsible for every death in New York State from COVID. Because Trump lied. He lied. And in combination with his lies, he was incompetent. It was his lie that said this was nothing to worry about. This was a hoax.
That's the governor of New York, one of the most important by population states in the country, basically echoing Keith Olbermann. Every death in the state of New York is Donald Trump's fault. This is crazy. I mean, this is completely morally obtuse. It's unjustifiable at any level. But this is where the Democrats are going. Whatever they can say in these last days to make everyone feel like it is Donald Trump's fault. COVID is Donald Trump's fault. It's outrageous, but friends, this is what we're up against. Got to hear it, got to know. Cuomo, meanwhile, is out there. Oh, he's doing a book tour. He's writing a book on how much he managed to defeat COVID. So he's got this book. What does the book tell you? The book tells you, based on facts, based on data, the greatest hero of the COVID fight is Governor Cuomo. Well, who thinks so? Well, first and foremost, Cuomo thinks so. And so he wrote this book. He didn't really write it. Somebody else wrote it for him. But the book's out there telling you that every COVID death is really responsible for Donald Trump's responsible for it. It's really on Donald Trump's shoulders. It's not me. So that's what you hear from this guy. And in the meantime, other experts who are out there trying to raise the alarm about what's really happening to the country as a result of this fear-induced panic that we are going through. Still, folks, what are we now, 7, 8 months of this? I thought we would be at least understanding of where we really were and what was going on by June. We'd say, all right, everybody, this is going to be out there. We got better, therapeutics. We're doing what we can, but, focused protection, the Great Barrington Declaration, that's what should be the policy. But nope. No, instead, you have got CNN's Tapper and the Dr. Gupta saying that, let's censor doctors who disagree. Play 18.
I can't think of anything more emblematic of this era that Twitter had to remove a tweet from Dr. Atlas because it was false. It was against masks.
Look, right. It was false. He wrote masks, ? No. Unbelievable. The guy who has the presidency around coronavirus, one of the most basic public health measures we can and should take. Data shows that it can save tens of thousands of lives. And he's saying masks? No. So he's not helpful. He's harmful at this point. And I can tell you this as well, Jake. Members of the task force called me over the weekend. They don't want to be named because everything's a fight nowadays.
Yeah,
but,
no,
you
I don't
probably
need to
saw
hear
some
from
of
his
the
anonymous.
response.
We don't need to hear from his anonymous sources or whatever in the White House. I read the article that Dr. Atlas shared, and it's from a guy who has a very specific background in this, and he walks through why masks work a tiny bit, not nearly well enough, folks.